And a good Saturday afternoon to you all. Welcome into another edition of Keep It in the Ring with Rich Mancuso. Now, Richard Pearson, my co-host, business again, and fortunately had a death in the family. Our condolences to Richard and his family. I'll hopefully be back next week. But fans, we're live here this week on the AGT Network, my YouTube channel, Rich Mancuso, and Facebook. It's Keep It in the Ring, an hour or less of pro boxing. Of course, a lot to talk about. Bottom of the hour, I'm going to bring on a former world champion, Mark Mandel, out of Jersey City, New Jersey. And fact of the week, pro wrestling this morning up at 5 a.m. to watch WWE Elimination Chamber. We'll go over that, some MMA talk as well. My social media are being scrolled at the bottom of the screen, plus the upcoming fights of significance starting tonight and throughout the next couple of weeks. Log into my social media, of course, Rich Mancuso at YouTube. I want you to comment, like, and subscribe also there and to the AGT Network, as well as Facebook.com, Rich Mancuso, and X, formerly Twitter, Ring786. Comment live now if you're watching us on the program today, and we'll be able to answer some of your questions if you have and address some of your comments. As always, good to be with you on this Saturday edition live of Keep It in the Ring on the AGT Network and YouTube with Rich Mancuso. All right, big boxing weekend, and this is, as I keep saying, boxing season. And it begins again tonight. Well, it doesn't begin. We've had some good fights already on the calendar early in the boxing season. But tonight, a good one on the zone. Two undefeated fighters at 168. Of course, all vying to get Canelo Alvarez. We'll talk more about Canelo and his situation in a moment. But tonight on the zone, it's Edgar Berlanga. And Edgar Berlanga undefeated. Of course, you remember Berlanga started out his career with 16 consecutive knockouts. Berlanga against Orlando Padrag, 12 rounds. Padrag McCrory. In other words, it is a 12-round fight, not for a title. Implications, though, because this guy, Edgar Berlanga, and we should have an image of him going up in a second. Edgar Berlanga is now with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom, multi-fight deal, and the zone. And a win tonight in Orlando, Florida, will get him that step closer, maybe to Canelo, maybe to Jaime Munguia. It all depends on how Eddie Hearn wants to play it with his new superstar, Edgar Berlanga, who had previously been with Top Rank. Because he had some contractual differences with Top Rank, left them. Eddie Hearn jumped on the ship, as he does with a lot of fighters. Eddie Hearn developing quite a great stable of contenders and champions with Matchroom, because they also get the exposure, as you know, on the zone. Good exposure, of course. Now, let's look at Berlanga and McCrory tonight. Two undefeated fighters, 168. Of course, McCrory has that power punch, and we don't know too much about him except that he is a top-rated fighter at 168. Berlanga, though, you got to be careful. He's had this up and down career. 16-0 to start, had a setback when the knockout streak ended, came back, took some time off, had an injury, and now he's back in the picture at 168. This will be a good fight. I believe tonight this fight goes to decision. I believe McCrory is enough and durable enough to go the distance with Edgar Berlanga. The question is, does Berlanga still have a devastating punch enough to put McCrory on the mat? I don't know how significant of the power Berlanga has to do that tonight. However, he is defensively still working on that part of his game in the ring. Regardless of the way you look at it, again, the implications here are, where does Berlanga go if he wins? Where does McCrory go if he gets this win? And Berlanga is the favorite, McCrory the underdog. The 168-pound division, of course, dominated by Canelo Alvarez, and Jaime Munguia is one of them also. And that's a fight that Eddie Hearn would love to make with Golden Boy, Munguia's promoter, at Golden Boy. And you could see Berlanger and Munguia may be happening. Mexico against Puerto Rico, because Berlanger, born in Brooklyn, New York, with the Puerto Rican heritage that he is very proud of. Munguia, of course, the Mexican and Mexican-Puerto Rico rivalry in wars and boxing has a great history, a historic history in the sport. So tune in tonight on the Zone if you have the stream and watch two of the top fighters at 168 undefeated go at it. My prediction on it, what is yours? My prediction, fans, is that this fight goes the distance and Berlanger comes out with a win, but not a close one. Again, if it goes the distance, as I think it will, what will the three judges, or I call three blind mice at ringside, decide who gets the win? And again, implications tonight at 168 for Edgar Berlanger. A win, and maybe he gets that step closer to getting a title shot at 168, or a fight with Jaime Munguia if Oscar De La Hoya and Eddie Hearn could work it out. Both of them would love to see that fight happen. But Edgar Berlanger does, as you know, have a lot of say in who his opponents are. And speaking of a fighter who has a lot to say where he goes, when and next, let's bring up Canelo Alvarez again. Now, we all thought this week that Canelo Alvarez, the unified champion at 168, that everybody's trying to vie to get a title with, that would be the guy that Berlanger would get next. But that, as I said, is not going to happen. We all thought Canelo Alvarez had an opponent set. Was it going to be the other Charlo brother? Who's it going to be? Well, earlier in the week, WBC head Jose Sulaiman Jr. had said that the mandatory would be Canelo Alvarez against David Benavidez at 168 for the titles, a fight that we all want to see. As I explained again last week, fans, a fight that boxing needs and should get. And Alvarez supposedly, or looks like, he's been avoiding Benavidez and going other routes, while Benavidez still pushes the cause. Well, after Sulaiman made his... he stood up to it and said that has to be the mandatory. Then we find out that Benavidez is now moving up to light heavyweight. Interesting, isn't it, fans? Sulaiman has since regressed from that comment of that fight being a mandatory, and now we find out that David Benavidez is moving to light heavyweight, which he can handle. He does rehydrate, goes up to the super middleweight division, and then he also can do light heavyweight. So Canelo Alvarez, we saw him last year lose the light heavyweight title bid to Dimitri Bivol, the WBA champion in the division. But now Benavidez says his next fight is moving to light heavyweight. And he's in June, supposedly, according to ESPN and other sources, Oxlander Groberdak in June for the WBC interim title at light heavyweight. Now, what do we make of this? Does this mean now that David Benavidez and Canelo Alvarez will never happen? Does it mean that David Benavidez at light heavyweight for this fight stays there and maybe fights Canelo Alvarez at light heavyweight? Now, I don't think that's going to happen, folks, because Canelo has all the belts at 168, at least most of them, among the alphabet soup organizations, as I call it. I think David Benavidez sees that a fight with Canelo Alvarez is not close. I think David Benavidez sees that he can handle the light heavyweight division, and he wants to test it. Though I do know that David Benavidez loves the fact of a challenge and going after a title. Again, talking about an eventual and hopeful fight against Canelo Alvarez. But he has decided for the moment that his next fight, supposedly in early June, is going to be against Alexander. Very interesting development this week because there's also this rematch coming up in the light heavyweight division in early June. Dimitri Bivol, the match everyone wants to see, the fight that everyone wants to see, not the match, the fight. Bivol and Arturo Benavides to unify the light heavyweight division, which is anticipated in early June, and a unification title fight that boxing and the fans love to see. So, center right now on this. Two divisions besides the lightweight division that we'll get to again in a moment. 168 and the light heavyweight division. And look at Canelo Alvarez and David Benavidez and where they are headed. Now, if you ask me, Benavidez goes back to 168. Jose Sulaiman wants to see Benavidez fight Canelo Alvarez now, and that fight will eventually happen, maybe in September. Canelo fights 2 times a year. He will fight in early May, Cinco de Mayo weekend, against an opponent to be determined. A lot of speculation who that will be, where it will be, probably in Las Vegas. And he fights again in September. That's his calendar. He calls the shots. He is supposedly still the face of boxing. So that's developing, and we'll see where that goes. Comment, fans, like, and subscribe here on my YouTube channel, Rich Mancuso, and on Facebook and Twitter. My social media handles, scroll to the bottom of the screen. As well, take attention to the upcoming fight calendar, significant fights coming up. All right, let's move on and talk about the lightweight division. Always a topic of discussion on this program. So much news going on. And take a look again about Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney, the upcoming fight April 20th for possible supremacy in that lightweight division. Ryan Garcia coming back to the ring after a year, after his loss last April to Gervonta Davis, where he did not perform well, as you know. And, of course, Devin Haney might be the top pound-for-pound fighter in boxing. That's always subject to debate. However, the development the past few days was this. Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney was scheduled to be in Las Vegas April 20th, and all of a sudden, a sudden shift and change, and now we have the fight in New York. The Barclays Center got it. What caused this change in venue? You know, Vegas is nice to host a fight, MGM Grand, T-Mobile Arena, wherever, and they have enough people to, to accommodate in either arena or more in Las Vegas. But the feeling was that, and the word is that neither arena was available in Vegas for that date. And so they shifted to Barclays Center, where there'll be probably dark action with no playoffs for the Jersey Nets basketball team. An arena that fits about 15,000. It is New York City. It's not Madison Square Garden. But the fight now in New York at the Barclays Center, which has been dormant with boxing the past few years. Pandemic hit, boxing stopped there. And they had a few fights after that didn't draw too well. But this one will draw. It will sell out. And the press conference tour begins in New York City Tuesday afternoon at the Palladium in Times Square and at the Westin Hotel in Los Angeles the following day. So Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney, who have a history, who wanted to get in there together, they both knew each other back then from the amateurs, will finally be face-to-face. Hopefully no pushing and shoving, and I expect there will be, in New York and Los Angeles for the dual press conferences back-to-back, Tuesday and Wednesday, New York and Los Angeles. But moved from Las Vegas to Brooklyn and the Barclays Center in New York. So big fight in New York, big for the Barclays Center, and big for the boxing fans who will come from all over to see a mega fight on the calendar April 20th. All right, move on, and let's take a look at a rematch that's going to be a buzz in boxing taking place on the Zone. Matchroom Boxing presents April 27th from Leeds, England. It's Josh Taylor and Jake Cottrell. Now, the two of them, of course, went to a controversial decision in their first fight, and Cottrell and Taylor There's no question about it. Carl Roberts behind the scenes. We have a photo of these two face to face with a little shoving match going on at their first of two press conferences in England and Ireland this past week. Matchroom and Eddie Hearn presented it. Josh Taylor and Jake Cottrell are going to be fighting again in the rematch anticipated. Good to see a rematch with these two. They'll settle the score, and maybe there'll be a trilogy. Of course, trilogies always determine who gets what, who determines what at the end. But this rematch will determine who's the better man this time. The first one ended in a controversial decision won by Josh Taylor. Many thought Cottrell won it. Taylor ended up winning it, winning the titles, becoming a lightweight champion, of course. Teofimo Lopez was involved in that mix as well. We look forward to that rematch coming up. And that's going to be in England, in Leeds, on April 27th. Fans, what do you think? Who do you like in that one? Cottrell or Josh Taylor? Let us know in the comments. Like, comment, and subscribe. All right, move on, and let's take a look at a fight that happened during the week with Shaquem Foster, top rank at Madison Square Garden, WBC fight, and Shaquem Foster against Abraham Nober. Went the route of 115, 112 on two judges' cards, one real wide, 116, 111. Foster is in line for something maybe this year. Has good power and good ability. We saw that at the Garden last week. He's calling out any number of opponents. Carl, do we have that? Do we have that image of the possible opponents for Shaquem Foster that might be next? I'd like to put that up so the fans can see what I'm talking about. There we go. Lamont Roach, of course, the champion, Emmanuel Navarrete, and then we have Joe Cordina. Now, any one of these guys could be next for Foster. Any one of these guys could face him somewhere, and Top Rank will do the negotiating. Foster called some of them out after his win in the Garden on Friday night. And anyone who faces him will have a tough test. This kid is dynamite. This kid is young. This kid has the ability to become a champion, I believe, fans, in the next year. It might not get a title shot this year, but early next. And that would be interesting and nice to see Navarrete against Foster. That would be a close barn burner, face-to-face. In the telephone booth, as they say, going at it punch for punch. That's what Navarrete likes to do. Now, Nober was no slouch. Nober gave Foster a fight until it was stopped. And Nober should be commended for staying in there. But the thing to look at, too, in boxing now in the next few months is where does Foster go next? And Navarrete, again, would be a good fight for him. Both got good styles. And as you know, in this sport, styles make fights. So we'll take a look at that. Now, Oscar De La Hoya is always in the news. As much as Ryan Garcia wants to keep his fight with Devin Haney in Vegas, and he did say that on his social media pages where he has over 1 million plus subscribers. God, I wish I could ever get that close to it. I never will. But Ryan Garcia vouched that he wants this fight still to be in Vegas, but apparently that's not going to happen. But De La Hoya said that the fight stays in Vegas, is in Brooklyn now, and look forward to being to see everyone in Brooklyn on Tuesday at the first press conference in the two-city tour. Oscar De La Hoya and Ryan Garcia are at peace with each other, apparently, from what I'm hearing. They're getting along, and they're moving along, and, of course, this fight with Devin Haney is going to make them work together. It's a money fight. It's a money fight. And De La Hoya, along with Eddie Hearn, keep signing fighters. And De La Hoya and Golden Boy signed U.S. Olympian WBC #1 super welterweight Charles Cornwell in a multi-fight deal this past week. That's a good pick. That's a good move for Golden Boy. They're trying to get on the map more and more to compete, but more so, Oscar De La Hoya wants the fights for the fans. As I keep telling you, he keeps saying it. He reiterates, We need to make the fights for the fans that can be done, and that means promoters working together. And Oscar De La Hoya in the past few weeks has been seen and talking more with Top Rank and Bob Arum, his promoter that propelled his career years ago to become a great champion and Hall of Famer he is today, and also that with Eddie Hearn. And Eddie Hearn and De La Hoya have developed a great alliance together to put these fights together. But De La Hoya signing fighters, and De La Hoya and Ryan Garcia are at peace, and that could only be good for the sport from what I can tell right now. There are a lot of talks about Eddie Hearn signing this young man. And let's put it up. Carl, do we have a image of Eddie Hearn and or in the welterweight division? I'm waiting to see if we have that. Bear with us, fans. We're live, and we're going through a couple of glitches here, and I don't want to just tell you, you know what? We'll get to that. We're going to talk more about that. There's just so much going on. My apologies to you. But let's move on and talk about Gervonta Davis. That's another one. Let's get back in motion here, Rich. Get it together. It's Saturday afternoon, 2 p.m. live. A lot going on. I've been up since 4 a.m. because I watched WWE Elimination Chain. Gervonta Davis is announced. It's reportedly announced he and Frank Martin will get at it at sometime in the late spring or early summer. Gervonta, of course, a player is in the lightweight division or at 140 as well. WBA lightweight title will be up for grabs for Gervonta Davis against Frank Martin. Of course, Gervonta has not been seen in the ring since his commanding win over Ryan Garcia last April in Las Vegas. That just compiled a massive figures on pay-per-view. And in boxing today, if you can get over 1 million pay-per-view buys, you're doing good. And that fight did well at the gate and on pay-per-view, generated a lot of revenue. Gervonta Davis coming back. That was an announcement too. WBA lightweight title sometime late spring, a PBC Prime pay-per-view event. A PBC is coming up in March with a good first PBC Prime pay-per-view event that, of course, it's going to be Keith Thurman on that card and Pitbull, Cruz, and going to be a good card. We'll talk more about that next week, about the first pay-per-view event for PBC and Prime. But Gervonta Davis will debut on there as well. Again, Frank Martin, Gervonta Davis coming up. Late spring, early summer. Where is Gervonta Davis fitting into all this right now? Many say that he is possibly in that talk of top fighter, pound for pound. I never really believe in that type of talk and gibberish. It just, rating fighters has never been a thing that I ever looked at as to being who's the best. Because once you get in that ring, you never know what's going to happen. But Gervonta is a top 10 fighter in the world, and young superstar, no longer rising. He's made a lot of money. He makes a lot of money for the promoters and for the PBC and Al Heyman. And Gervonta Davis is going to return, but he's got to fight more to be more marketable. Gervonta has only been fighting once a year. He's got to fight more than that. When in my era, back then, Hearns, Hagler, Duran, Leonard, so forth, and all the other divisions, you saw fighters fighting maybe 3 times a year, maybe 4. And that's something that we're not seeing again. And we need to see that for boxing to become a face again in sports. And we're not seeing that. Fighters need to fight more than once a year. And we're not getting that. And Gervonta Davis is an example of that. Ryan Garcia is an example of that. The mega superstars of the sport need to get in the ring more than once a year. There's a lot of logistics involved with that. We know that. Putting the fights together with the promoters, the purse bids and the purses, and the alphabet soup sanctioning organizations. But one guy that fans want to see more than once a year is Gervonta Davis. And he begins that year, 2024, now against Frank Martin. Uh, a fight that Gervonta can handle. Frank Martin is formidable, but I think Gervonta Davis will handle it and defend his title. And then where does he go from there? But again, he has to fight more than once a year. All right. We got so much more to come on the program here live on YouTube, on the AGT network, and here on Keep It in the Ring with Rich Mancuso. We will be back after this brief break. I'm going to come back and spend some time with a good friend and former world champion Mark Maddow. We'll talk about that in a moment. Don't forget, fans, on the lower tier of the screen, my social media handles X, formerly Twitter, Ring786, Facebook.com, Rich Mancuso, and of course, the AGT network. I want you to like, want you to comment here on the program. I want you to subscribe. We'd appreciate that. So back in a moment with Mark Maddow and much more with the MMA and WWE Talk Elimination Chamber. This is Rich Mancuso. Keep it in the ring. Back in a moment. Stay with us. And we're back live on Keep It in the Ring here on the AGT Network and YouTube and Facebook all over. I'm Rich Mancuso. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. We're here live this week and hope to be again live next week. Please like, comment, and subscribe to my page on Facebook, also on YouTube, Rich Mancuso, and the AGT Network. All right. A lot more to go here in the last half hour of this week's program live. And let's bring in a friend, a former world champion from Jersey City, New Jersey. And we have a lot to talk about, reminiscing, current state of some of the fights going on, and also my vouch for him to be in the Boxing Hall of Fame. Mark Maddow, my friend, welcome in.
How you doing, Rich? How you doing? God bless you. Have a great day, Rich.
Good to hear from you, Mark, a former champion, a former IBF super welterweight champion back in 1986-87. I remember Mark real well. Covered the beginning of his career and covered many of his fights afterwards, especially when he fought regularly. And I said more than once a year. That's what fighters used to do. The old Self Forum, Madison Square Garden, there on 8th Avenue and 33rd Street in New York. Mark Maddow was signed by Madison Square Garden Boxing and Harold Wetson and propelled his career there and then went on to become a world champion. In fact, Mark, I'm going to bring up an image of you right now, bring you back in the past. We have an image of you fighting a Hall of Famer, great world champion. There he is, Tommy Hearns. And you and Hearns fought in Las Vegas in 1986, 10th round stoppage title fight. Remember that well, Mark, do you?
It was real well. It was a great fight. The only thing that hurt me on that fight, Rich, was that the two spiritual women got me in the elevator prior to the fight and took all my anger. If not, I would have knocked Tommy out.
Really? I didn't know that. What happened?
Prior to the fight, every time when it was fight time, they would call you in the room and they would say showtime. So you would walk over to the elevator, and whatever floor you was on, and we were on the 11th floor, and the elevator stopped on the 10th floor, on the 9th floor, and three spiritual women jumped in there and just started yelling, talking, and grabbing me. And before when they walked out of the elevator, I was the happiest guy in the world. My manager goes, he said, "Mark, are you all right?" I said, "Yeah, I'm all right. Why? Is something wrong?" But that's what they did. They took all my anger, and I couldn't stop Tommy. But I didn't ask him for a rematch. I begged him for a rematch, and he kept saying he already beat me. I said, "Okay, well, beat me again. Please beat me again." And he just wouldn't give me the rematch, Rich.
Well, but that became though a memorable fight of your distinguished and good career, Mark. And Tommy Hearns, if I remember correctly, was very, very complimentary about your skill and how you gave him a fight. Of course, that was an era when we had Hearns, Hagler, Duran, Leonard, welterweights, super welterweights, 140, you had the alphabet soup organizations beginning. You held that title, IBF world title. How do you recall that? Do you remember that when you won that title and how it felt?
Yes, oh, definitely. We fought Earl Hargrove for the world championship, and it was a 15 rounder, and I think I stopped him in the fifth round. But he was a hell of a puncher, a hell of a fighter, and it was a great fight, But thank God I won the fight, but it was some fight, and just the opportunity to fight was the greatest thing for me. So I took that opportunity and ran with it.
It was an era in boxing that you were a part of with some great world champions. Right there again, you having Tommy Hearns a part of your resume. That alone, plus being a former world champion, should get you Hall of Fame consideration. Yet the Boxing Hall of Fame up in Canastota, New York, Mark, keeps you off the ballot every year, which just befuddles me because you're a former world champion. The Boxing Hall of Fame is made for that. Induct former world champions. And Mark Mandel should definitely be on that ballot every year, or at least a write-in to get Hall of Fame consideration. I mean, come on, you fought Tommy Hearns, you're former world champion. Mark, do you feel you've been bypassed getting Hall of Fame consideration?
I really did. None of that stuff really matters to me, Rich. But if they give it to me, they give it to me. If they don't, they don't. I feel that I did the best I could in the ring, and becoming a world champion for a kid who never fought in the amateurs, no amateur experience at all, and to become a world champion in 3.5 years is the greatest thing in the world. But I'm happy with life, and I'm happy. The only thing that I regret in life was the three spiritual ladies who jumped on me prior to fighting Hearns, because I knew I was going to tear him up. I just knew it. I had squatted with him in the Catskills and knocked him down twice with body shots, so I knew what was
Mm.
gonna. I knew what was going to happen, and they just took all the anger out of me. And
Yeah,
uh,
distractions. No doubt, Mark, that we're talking to Mark Maddow, former world champion at Jersey City, New Jersey, and should be in the Hall of Fame, as I mentioned moments ago, folks. Uh,
thank you, Rich.
no doubt, Mark, that distractions will hurt a fighter going into a big fight, and that's your claim right now, going back way back in the 1986 era when boxing was really strong at that time with some great fighters, especially in that division you were in. But you moved on and you did become a world champion. And that's something no one could ever take away from you.
Thank you, Rich. My mother tells me that all the time, and so does my family. And my friends, when I walk up and down the streets in Jersey City, that's all they do is, "Mark, you were the champ. They can never take that away from you. Don't worry about it, Mark." I said, "I'm not worried. I'm just happy and having a great time in life, and that's all it's about now. I have a granddaughter who drives me crazy. Who's the greatest thing in the world, and the greatest thing about having a granddaughter is that you know how much your grandmother loves you.
Right,
That's
you're
it.
a grandpa. How old are you now, Mark? And you're in good health too.
66. Yeah, I stay in shape. I run one day yes, one day no, just to run. The guys, they see me jogging and say, "Mark, why are you jogging?" I say, "Because if I have a fight and I hit a guy on the chin and he doesn't fall, I'm running." So,
Mark, the do you keep in tune with the sport? I know you do when we talk, and know what's going on. And then what do you make of what's going on in boxing today as opposed to when you were in there in the 80s as a world champion?
Well. Now everybody's picking and choosing who they want to fight. Back in the day, we had to fight anybody was on the registry, and boxing is boxing no matter what happens. And I, there's some great fighters out there, and I'm so happy that I can just sit down sometimes and watch these guys fight. So I'm happy no matter what. No matter what boxing brings to me, I'm happy.
Do you go to the fights at all? Do you stay in tune at ringside? I don't
Yeah,
go as much as I used to. Do you? Do you mingle around ringside and go to some of the fights?
yeah. I got a two friends that they go to the fights all the time, and they usually call me and say, "Mark, you want to come to the fight?" And I say, "Yeah, I go." And I go with them, and we always have a great time. And just seeing all the boxing fans from way back in the day, as opposed to now, it's just a little different. But at the end of the day, it's the same. They give you the same love and they gave you back in the day, and that's all that matters to me.
Yeah, the sport has definitely changed. And I mean, when you were in the ring there, we didn't have the streaming services we have now. HBO and Showtime were just getting off the. In fact, HBO was not even a top force then. You had pay per view. That used to be the big thing.
Yeah,
Fights you could get more on free TV. MSG Network televised all your fights because they had the ability to do that direct from the Garden with them with Madison Square Garden. They had the network, and you were seen there a lot on MSG Network, which really wasn't a great national stage for you. But today, the sport it's getting more difficult if you don't have a streaming service and want to pay for it. You're not going to see boxing on free TV. What are your thoughts about that, Mark?
yeah. Well, everything is about money now. America is the greatest country in the world, but I tell you, money in America just if you don't have it, you don't have it. If you have it, you have it. Simple as that, Rich.
Now, Mark, the prevailing question I have is when you fought in that era, money, fighters weren't making multi-million dollar purses as they're doing now, or getting that big revenue from pay per view or the streaming networks with the promoters. I mean, we have a lot more promoters now, more, and the streaming networks are dominating the sport. Um, if you don't mind telling the fans out there, um, we fought Marvin Hagel, who was the name, the championship fight, former
Martin,
world champion. What was the highest purse you made in the sport during your career, if you don't mind telling us?
when I fought Hearns. I made 750.
750,000.
Yeah,
A fight that right now would probably go for a purse of 2.5 million or so.
yeah.
And do you have any? Would turning back the clock? Do you wish that you could turn back the clock and fight in this era now as opposed to
Oh,
the era you were in? Or did you really enjoy that era of boxing you were in?
I enjoyed the era that I was in because they had all the best fighters there. But I would love to, you know, if I was younger, I would love to fight some of these fighters now. You know, most of the fighters forget that once you in that ring, it's either hit or get hit. Some of the fighters forget that, and I don't see how they can go through the 10 rounds, 12 rounds, 15 rounds nowadays. The conditioning is totally different now, and the boxing is just one of the greatest sports in the world, and I just commend it no matter what happens in life to me, and I keep moving forward, Rich. Especially with guys like you, Richard, keep me.
Oh no, I'm a relic. I'm a dinosaur. I'm a so that era with all those fighters. I don't like comparing era to era. I don't like comparing fighter versus fighter from one era to another. But if you had your choice right now, turn back the clock a little bit or move the clock up. Either way, we don't want to get older as we are, me and you. But Mark, if you had your choice right now in the division you were in, who would be an ideal opponent for you?
Tommy Hearns again. Tommy Hearns. I would love.
No,
But I.
we know you'd like to get Hearns again,
Oh
but
man,
you're not going to see that. We're not going to get an old timers boxing match. I'm dead against that.
that's
Dead
true.
against that.
Yeah,
But currently, right now, take your pick. Who would you look at as an ideal opponent if he was in your era?
wow.
I know that's tough. I know that's a tough
Yeah,
one off the top of.
Canelo's is a great fighter, awesome fighter. You got some good names out there, especially at our weight. It's especially with the situation that Canelo can go up and down. He can do what he has to do, and he's just
Yeah.
an exceptional fighter, incredible fighter. God bless him.
Do you like that strategy that Canelo Alvarez uses to handpick his opponents and supposedly the face of the sport? What do you think of him?
I think he's a great fighter, and tough, vicious, and he's always prepared to fight, which is the greatest thing in Mexicans boxers. In Mexican boxers, there's no matter when they're gonna fight, they always come prepared to fight. That's the greatest thing the Mexicans have. The
What do you
great.
make of the upcoming big battle with Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia here in New York at the Barclays Center on April 20th, which will be a zone pay-per-view promoted by Golden Boy. What do you think of that fight? How do you size that one up? That everyone's been buzzing about this already
Well,
and looking forward to it.
well, Rich, the Devin Haney, a great fighter, and he's fighting a great fighter in Brian. Um, I hope Brian comes to fight. If he comes to fight, he can win the fight. But never take anything away from Devin because he comes to fight all the time. So it's going to be a great fight.
Mark McDowell, former world champion out of Jersey City, New Jersey, guest on the program, keeping in the ring. Going to wrap this up in a moment. Mark, what's wrong with the sport today, in your opinion? Is it because fighters don't fight enough? Is the
Yeah,
sport's not getting the exposure it should get? Too many streaming networks, too many sanctioning organizations. You ask an average boxing fan, some of them can't even name the champions in each division because there were way too many.
yeah,
You ask boxing fans what's wrong. There's really, they say, except for Gervonta Davis or Ryan Garcia or Devin Haney, who we've been talking about, or anybody like that, they can't name who. They're not seeing the fights they want to get. What do you think is wrong with the sport, Mark, compared to your era in the 80s?
Well, the promoting is definitely wrong. Back in the days, you have fight after fight after fight after fight after fight. And all the fighters were ready to fight and prepared to fight. That's the only thing that I would complain about now is the fighters aren't fighting enough.
Yeah, you're a proponent then of fighters fighting more than once or twice a year. That like Canelo does it twice, and that's rare. Him doing a world
Yeah,
champion, he knows he fights 2 times a year. In fact, he's the last fighter who fought 4 times a year just a couple of years ago
yeah, I
on his
remember
way
that.
to that unification 168-pound titles that he has. Um, but also the judging. And I thought, I think that you would make a very good judge. Former fighters, I believe, should be judges at ringside because I call these guys three blind mice. You never know what you're going to get. I mean, we saw that in the Garden last week with Foster, where one scorecard was 116-111, which was ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah, I
It
saw
should
that,
have
Rich.
been that way.
That
Um,
was horrible, Rich.
does there need to be a difference with the judges at ringside? And should fights go once again back to 15 rounds? An era when you saw 15-round fights. Now at 12 because of safety procurements. Uh, what about judges and 15-round fights again? What are your opinions on that, Mark?
I would love that. The 15 rounds they separate the men from the boys sometimes. That's the way I see it. I went 15 rounds with Carlos Santos in Madison Square Garden.
15 rounds, yeah, I remember that. And also, as opposed to 12 rounds, 15 rounds in a tight fight makes a big difference, doesn't it?
without a doubt, Rich. Yes.
So you're all for 15-round fights. And again, let's go back to the judging and leave off on this. Uh, Do you feel there needs to be a change with judges at ringside, a better scrutiny of them? Um, it's not an easy job. When I always say that, it is subjective too. You
Rich,
never know what you're going to get. But some of these decisions and scorecards of the past few years in the sport just blow
crazy.
your mind.
They're crazy, Rich. You're absolutely right, Rich. You know, I remember one fight that one of the I can't remember the two fighters' name, but one of the refs, one of the scoring judges had it. I think it was like about maybe 10 points dissuasive, totally crazy against the other fighter. And some judges, some judges are still this day are still partial to the fighter that they come see, and if they know the fighter, they'll lean towards that fighter, not knowing sometimes that they definitely don't win the fight, and that's the only problem with boxing now that I see.
Yeah, it just that's what when I talk to fans that love the sport and a lot of them that want to get into the sport again, my era and this new generation, one of the things they always tell me is that they just can't tolerate the many sanctioning organizations and the proliferation of champions and divisions, and also their biggest complaint: a fighter got ripped off. That decision is wrong. Something is wrong.
Yes,
That fight was on the take. In other words,
yes,
let's face it, with sports gambling more out there than ever was and getting bigger and bigger with the revenue gained from it, you never know. I'm not accusing, but you never know. But I've been writing about it in my columns on NewYorkSportsDay.com and elsewhere about how the sport needs revision with the judging system. And yeah, why not go back to 15-round fights? Because a close encounter, sometimes 15 rounds makes a difference over 12.
without a doubt, Rich. You're absolutely right.
All right, Mark, one final question as I let you leave, and hopefully you'll become an eventual boxing Hall of Famer. It's long overdue, and it should be deserved to you, and we'll get more about that
Thank
in
you
the
so
weeks
much,
and
Rich.
months to come.
Thank you so
Um,
much.
if there's one thing that you can say to the boxing world today to improve the sport, to get it more visibility. As a former world champion, you are, and as someone who did real well for the sport in the 1980s era, going into the 90s, what can you tell the boxing world to make it better?
Well, just change some of the judges and give the right decisions all the time. Because those fighters go out there, they train, they prepare to get the fight, and then to get a fight called against them because one judge likes the other fighter more, not because he won the fight, but just because he likes him more. Give that fighter the fighter. So
Agree.
I just believe that with the better judges, boxing will get 10 times better.
Well said, Mark. Let's put up that image again one more time of you against Tommy Hearns that we showed earlier. There it is. You can never take that away. uh, Fighting a world class Hall of Famer, great fighter in that era, Thomas Hitman Hearns, and Mark Maddow has that on his resume. Even though it was a loss, it was a win for you and a win for the boxing fan because they got to see Mark Maddow fighting Tommy Hearns. And again, Mark, former world champion, well deserved. Can't take that away from you. And maybe an eventual boxing Hall of Famer up in Canastota soon. It should happen. My friend, always good talking to you. Um, it's always a pleasure getting on the phone with you and going over the old days and talking about what's going on now. And we got a book project maybe coming up between me and you. We're going to get to that too in a matter of time. Mark Maddow, as I tell everyone, champ, keep it in the ring, my friend.
Thank you so much, Rich, and God bless you. And Rich, keep on keeping on because without you, boxing will never survive without you, but Rich.
You're being too kind. Boxing will go on with or without me.
Yeah, but we need the people to keep telling the truth, like just like you do, Rich. God bless
All
you,
right.
Rich, and I hope you have a great day.
All right, Mark. Thank you. We'll be in touch, and I'll tell fans how they want to reach you. As because I know you're not big on social media, but we'll get that to them. Oh, Mark. One other thing before I let you go,
Go ahead,
Mark.
Rich. Yeah, I'm here.
I do this every week on the program. Fact of the week. My co-host Richard Pearson hasn't been on for the last couple of weeks now due to other obligations. However, because you're the guest this week, and because I know you can handle this. You want to take a fact at the crack of the week? Fact of the week. It's not trivia. It's a fact.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, Carl, put it up. Put up that fact of the week image. Let's see it. Let's. All right, Mark, here it is. The fact of the week. You like that?
Yeah, I love the movie.
All right, Mark, here it is. And for everyone else out there who wants to take a crack at it, who said, I always try to catch my opponents right on the tip of their nose. I try to push the bone right into the brain.
Mike
What
Tyson.
form? Oh, you got it. Hey, Carl, I got to make these questions harder for these guys. Carl, do we have a sound of the bell? Because Mark Waddell got that real quick. Mike Tyson got his first 19 wins by knockout. Carl, do we have a bell for that win? Guess not. But Mark Waddell, you got the fact of the week. I owe you dinner now or something. We'll come up with it. Okay?
Rich, have a great day, man. Because you made my day. God bless you a million times.
Keep it in the ring. Mark Waddell, former world champion. We'll be in touch, my friend. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It was great. Mark Waddell getting the fact of the week. All right, Carl, I'm going to take a brief time out, real brief, and come back. As Keep It in the Ring, we'll continue and wrap it up with UFC talk, WWE talk, and then we'll wrap it all up. You're watching Keep It in the Ring. I'm Rich Mancuso. Back in a moment. Stay with us. All right, back to the final moments of Keep It in the Ring. UFC, MMA talk now, a little bit of that, plus WWE Elimination Chamber analysis. And I'll do that in a moment with Carl Roberts, our producer in the background. The fighter that I botched his name, I'm getting older, and pardon me again, folks. It's just me. Live program, 2 p.m. on Saturday, being up at 4 a.m. this morning for WWE Elimination Chamber. I don't want to make excuses, but I was talking about Sabrio Mateus, who at 140 or 147, wherever he wants to go, signed with Matchroom and Eddie Hearn, as you know, multi-fight deal. That's a great addition to the Matchroom zone stable of fighters. And Mateus has got some announcements coming up about whose next opponent is going to be probably in June. From where they're talking. Great signing for Eddie Hearn and Matchroom and Sabrio Mateus out of Puerto Rico. Okay, now, UFC MMA talk. Carl, put this up. I got to show this to the folks. Because Michael Chandler at WWE Monday Night Raw in Anaheim, where WWE, Endeavor, and TKO signed deals with over there in as crossovers. That's what they're doing now in Anaheim, California. And there he is, Michael Chandler, calling out Conor McGregor, UFC 298. That's what he wants. This is part of that crossover that continues with WWE and the UFC. MMA talk. See more of that on WWE program and UFC program. Chandler wants Conor McGregor. In UFC 300, Alex Pereira defends his heavyweight title against Jemiah Hill. That's going to be coming up. And how about Tapia stopping Alexander in the second round of featherweight title bout? UFC ending the Australian's 4-year title reign. That was a big news UFC title event this past week. More UFC MMA talk next week, but that Michael Chandler calling out Conor McGregor, could that lead to WrestleMania? Who knows? There's this merger crossover with the UFC and WWE with that TKO Endeavor merge, which is huge, huge, my friends. It is huge. All right, let's talk WWE first. Before we get into the chamber results, I want to bring up Paul Romer, a friend that I worked with in the past when I was in the pro wrestling industry, calling out Vince McMahon, calling out the illegalities in the lawsuit. He was on News Nation this past week. If you missed the interview, it's all over the place. Paul Romer is now speaking out about sexual harassment and sexual things going on illegally in WWE during his time in the 80s, early 90s. Paul Romer was a part of the Four Horsemen at one time, too. If you remember, in WWE, Hercules Hernandez, his late former friend, former champion, tag team champion, talking about the sexual favors and the allegations against Vince McMahon. I commend Paul Romer for speaking out, especially on a national television platform on News Nation this past week. He says he's got more to say. Him and Mario Mancini, his friend and former partner in the ring as well. Found that to be really, really interesting that a former WWE superstar who, look, I can tell you that Paul Romer does not like Vince McMahon. But I also can tell you that things that went on during that time with all of this, I heard more than one account. Didn't see it up live personally when it was around the industry and the business, but I heard a lot. I heard a lot from many then WWF superstars, as it was called, with Vince McMahon and all these things going on behind the scenes. And shame that it came down to this, because the Vince McMahon legacy is not going to, it's going to be remaining with this, and there's more to come with it. So Paul Romer, though, commended for doing what he's do on News Nation. All right, Carl Roberts, let's briefly bring you in, talk about what we saw this morning in Perth, Australia, WWE Elimination Chamber. And Carl, were you up at 4 a.m. like I was?
No, I was still seeing the back of my eyes at that point. But real quick, Rich, what you were talking about with the Vince McMahon stuff, it just came out that WWE removed from the intro a superstar from the intro of Monday Night Raw.
Is that Brock Lesnar?
Lesnar. He is being implicated in multiple reports that he is involved somehow. So,
yeah, we've been hearing that.
The truth on this one before we go live on our other show, which is called The Main Event, about it.
But again, Lesnar and Vince McMahon were very close. We know that. We all know that. They have a great history together. And right now, Brock Lesnar's been removed from any more dealings with WWE. He was supposed to be a part of the WrestleMania picture, too. And there was a lot of talk of him that he was going to fight Luther, right? That he was going to wrestle Luther. But all that's removed. Brock Lesnar now is just history with WWE, but will never be mentioned again, because with this new endeavor, as you know, with TKO and the UFC, they don't have any part of that, the stockholders, the shareholders. That's not happening. So Lesnar is history. But let's talk about what happened in Perth, Australia earlier today. If you were up at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m., you saw it live. If not, you might be watching it on delay on the Peacock network. I had to watch it live. It's not the same if you don't. But as predicted, let's put her image up. I think we have Becky Lynch, right? Do we have?
No, I don't have a new one of her. But
she did win the
announce. She did win.
Yes.
And also, too, I can announce Rhea Ripley retained her title against Nia Jax.
Right.
Which sets up for WrestleMania 40 for the women's title.
Right.
Rhea Ripley, who is your champion, versus Becky Lynch.
And Nia Jax and the Rhea Ripley match, fantastic. And Nia Jax, since her return to WWE, has been, as they say, the irresistible force, and she has been. That was a
Correct.
great match. And Ripley, of course, in front of our hometown fans in Australia and Perth, that was a great match. She got a great ovation. WWE did a great job promoting the event in Perth, except who wants to get up at 4 or 5 a.m. to watch one of their PLE events? And then that was predictable. Becky Lynch would get the shot at Rhea for WrestleMania, which she wins the title again. That remains to be seen. This guy, though, do you have an image of Drew McIntyre?
Don't have a picture of him.
Oh, all right. No images this week, Carl. What are you doing to me?
I slacked today. I'm sorry.
All right, because we're
But
live.
Drew
That's
McIntyre
why.
Did win.
Drew McIntyre wins the Chamber. We all predicted that. And Drew McIntyre now is going to get his retribution and get a title shot against Seth Rollins at WrestleMania. I thought the men's chamber match was not as good as the female match, though I was impressed again with Logan Paul. And, of course, KO Kevin Owens is always giving you a great job.
Now, you did mention a certain name that just came up. Logan Paul possibly just set up the match at WrestleMania 40 with Randy Orton.
Yeah,
because Logan
saw
Paul
the
knocked
brass
out Randy
knuckles,
Orton
right?
With the brass knuckles.
And then Logan Paul went after him afterwards with the brass knuckles. Yeah, that's a WrestleMania match. Where does Kevin Owens go now?
Now, that is a good question. We don't know. The only other question it would be is, would he set something up with, say, maybe an NXT superstar? Because they're actually looking at bringing Braun Strowman up to the main event. Well, the big show, the big shows.
Yeah, he's on the heel rebound, and I heard that as well. Anything else come out of Chamber that you thought was interesting? I mean, I thought it was a solid show.
It was a solid show all around. The only other one was the Judgment Day, who was your tag team titles. They retained their titles for that. But other than that, really nothing else. I mean, it was just an all-around great show. I'm glad WWE did a paid live event at Australia.
Yeah.
I know they're actually supposed to be going to Germany for a pay-per-view.
Yes, they are. I think is that Money in the Bank going to be there? What's the name of it? They're going to Germany, and and Luther is going to be the headline there. That's where he's from, or Kaiser. That's where he's from.
Yeah,
so they're going to do that. Yeah,
it's Gunther, but yes,
Gunther. Right. I always get them confused as well. Again, Becky Lynch. Now we know, and we also know about Drew McIntyre's match. Can we confirm? As we all know that they're talking, and we saw that at the Chamber interview on what's it with Grayson Waller Effect show. I thought it was fantastic with Cody and Seth Rollins. Can we confirm there was no Roman Reigns there? There was no bloodline. Can we confirm for sure that night one of WrestleMania that we're going to have that tag match with The Rock and Reigns against Cody and Seth?
Yet, but it's speculation that it will happen, but also too that is to be seen because we don't know what actually is going to transpire. Again, right now it's speculation that it's going to happen.
Yeah,
but it's
which would also mean Reigns would. We talk about that. Reigns then would have wrestle Cody on night 2, and then lose the title because The Rock will turn good again, which I find fascinating. Again, that he's getting booed like this, I can't believe it.
Oh, it's been years since he had this. And
I know.
If you remember the photo of them standing in the ring, they're all raising the number 1. The Rock actually had an L shape.
Right.
So
Yeah, he's coming in.
the
He's
speculation
going to
is he's
turn
gonna
again.
turn
He's
on
going to
Roman.
cause. He's market for me. I've been around this long enough. Reigns will Rock will cost Reigns the title against Cody on night 2. Raise his hand, and Cody finishes the story. Carl, when the fans on the network get to hear the wrestling talk?
So it's called The Main Event, where you go live every Thursday night at 8 p.m. It's me and my co-host Costa. You can find us on all our social medias right here on the network. And then also, too, we have our sports show that will actually be live tonight. That is called The Fans from the Stands. That's Casa and our good friend Damien. They will be talking all about sports, especially since it is now baseball season.
Yeah. Tell me about it. I'll be back at the ballpark soon. Hard to believe. Carl Roberts, my great guy behind the scenes. We'll fix the glitches for next week. We were live this week. Hope to go live again with you all next week here on the network, AGT, and YouTube, and social on Facebook and so forth, and other platforms. Gonna say goodbye for now, but I'll talk to you later. Right, Carl? Thanks.
You got it.
Keep it in the ring. We're gonna wrap it up. Carl Roberts. All right, fans. A very informative hour. A lot going on. I hope I explained it the best I could. I thank Mark McDowell once again, the former world champion from Jersey City, New Jersey. Great talking with Mark and getting his insights about boxing right now. One other note before we go, and that's about Manny Pacquiao. The IOC, International Olympic Committee, said they're not changing the rules for him to compete at the upcoming Paris Games this summer because he's aged 5 years beyond. Pacquiao wanted to get back in the ring somehow and be a part of the Olympics, the games, and it's not going to happen. They say the age limit is 45. He's at that limit. And Floyd Mayweather Jr. says he's not coming out of retirement to record another fight and rematch against Manny Pacquiao. They've been talking buzz about that. You know, when you're on social media, you get a lot of rumors, a lot of gossip. All this stuff comes up, and it's denied. Some of it comes true, but there is no Pacquiao Mayweather rematch. Nowhere is that happening. That's not happening, folks. All right. Enjoy the fights tonight on the Zone. Again, let's see if Edgar Berlanger, when his first fight with Matt Truman on the Zone, comes out the winner and makes a statement in that 168-pound division that Canelo Alvarez holds. And will David Benavidez hold true to fighting as a light heavyweight and still keep his eyes on Canelo Alvarez? That's developing. And, of course, we'll be in New York City for that press conference Tuesday. Fireworks sure to erupt. Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia at the Palladium in Times Square, which I believe is open to the public. If you're in the New York area, get there early enough. You might get a ringside seat for that 2-3 hour press conference extravaganza as we await April 20th in New York Barclays Center. Ryan Garcia and I'll tell you, Garcia Henny's going to be a barn burner. Gervonta Davis back in the picture. We talked about that earlier. Fighting again at some point. Frank Martin, early summer. Fans, thank you for tuning in. My social media here is scrolled at the bottom of the screen. More next week. Remember, I could be at facebook.com, Rich Mancuso, X, formerly Twitter, Ring786. Like, subscribe, and comment on my YouTube channel, Rich Mancuso, and all my other social media platforms, and like, comment, subscribe at the AGT Network. Thank you all for tuning in. Thanks again to everyone who have been a part of the program this week. Back at you next week. Watch the social media posting if we're going to be live or on tape delay, and just stay in touch. I'll always be good to hear from you, always good, and we'll get back to you as soon as I can. All right, folks, till next week. Stay good to each other. Be well. And as always, as I always say, keep it in the ring. Till next week. Thank you all. Stay in touch.